I worked in a federal prison for years. I'm gonna tell you what no one else will.
These walls hold stories that were never meant to be told. Stories that scarred those who survived.
No one could explain what we saw on those tapes. We still can't.
I never thought I'd tell this. Honestly, I swore I'd take it all to the grave, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, certain I'm back there, hearing those muffled screams, seeing shadows that shouldn't exist. It's as if telling it might strip away part of the horror, but the truth is there's no escape. I worked as a correctional officer in a federal maximum security prison for over a decade. Everyone said it was a stable job, decent pay, but no one warned me about the real price, because there are things that happen behind those walls that can't be explained, that can't be justified, that can't be forgotten. You ever wonder what turns a man into a monster? Many of the people we locked up were already monsters before they arrived, but there was something in the air there, soaked into the cold concrete, that made them worse. Hatred didn't just exist there, it breathed with us. And on my shift, I saw things that had no right to exist walking among us. I know this sounds like madness. Call me crazy if you want. Honestly, I'd prefer it. It's easier to live branded a lunatic than to admit it was real. Because if you believe what I'm about to tell you, you'll never sleep easy again. There was one night in particular, the worst of them all. That's when I knew for certain hell isn't underground. It hides in places like that prison. I should have transferred out years before. But the paycheck, the routine, the fear of losing everything kept me trapped there until it was too late. Before I go on, I need to warn you. If you don't have the stomach for this, leave now. This isn't one of those stories with a happy ending. There's no hero, no redemption, no relief. If you're still here, I'm asking you to like this video, share it with anyone who thinks they're brave enough to hear the rest, and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to tell you everything, even knowing that by doing so, I'm cursing anyone who listens. Afterward, don't say I didn't warn you. That night started like any other. I checked my weapon, signed in on the duty log, nodded tiredly at the supervisor. He didn't even look at me. Nobody looked anyone in the eye anymore. We all knew if we did, we'd see the fear. They say in federal prison, you learn to fear the living. But I learned to fear the dead, because that night, I saw the ones who were dead walking the corridors. I used to think I knew fear. You spend years locking up murderers and drug lords, and you start to believe nothing can shake you. But real fear doesn't scream. It whispers. It seeps in slowly until you can't tell what's normal anymore and what's a nightmare. That night, I did my rounds like always. The corridor felt as cold as a tomb. The lights buzzed in a constant grating tone. Some of them flickered. That was normal. Maintenance always behind schedule. Budget cuts. But the air felt different. There was a silence so heavy, it felt like it had weight. I started writing in the logbook, trying to keep busy. The radio on my belt crackled, letting out static. I turned the dial to check and heard something, not a voice, but a wet scraping sound, like something dragging across concrete. I tried to convince myself it was just interference, but it wasn't the first time. Weeks earlier, guards had started complaining about voices on the radios, incoherent whispers, stifled laughter. The supervisor told us to ignore it. Old equipment, electrical issue. But everyone knew it was easier to swallow that lie than admit something was wrong. That night, the air felt even colder than usual. My fingers tingled against the metal of my baton. When I passed Block D, I smelled it. That stench. Mold and rotting meat so strong it made me gag. The cells were locked, inmates asleep or pretending to be. None of them seemed to smell it, but I did. I kept walking. Then I heard footsteps. Clearly, I froze. My grip on the baton tightened. I looked behind me. Nothing ahead, nothing, but the footsteps kept echoing down the hall, slow, dragging, like someone with bloody feet leaving an invisible trail. I keyed the radio. Central. Anyone in South Corridor, silence, just static. Respond. More silence. I took a step back. The sound stopped. Then I noticed the security monitor at the end of the hall, old on black and white. It showed a wide shot of the corridor. I saw myself standing there, but in the lower corner of the screen, something moved. A dark silhouette, humanoid. Wrong. I blinked. The screen fizzled with static, then went back to normal. I know what I saw. I ran down there. Nothing. No movement. No open doors. The reinforced cell doors were all secure. I returned to the station with my heart pounding, wrote in the incident log, radio interference, unidentified noise. I lied on paper, but I couldn't lie to the mirror in the locker room, where I saw my own face, pale, sunken-eyed, sweating with terror. During shift change, I tried telling a senior guard. He cut me off before I could finish. Shut the fuck up. You want to disappear too, that was it. He didn't need to explain. In that federal prison, when something weird happened, rule number 1 was, don't talk about it. But I heard the footsteps. I smelled death. I saw that shape on the screen. And that was only the beginning. I wanted to believe it was all in my head, that it was just my mind playing tricks on me from exhaustion, paranoia, static in the system. But the federal prison wasn't a place that forgave weakness, and in that forgotten wing, reality started to bend in ways no one wanted to admit. The next night, I showed up early. I sat silently in the locker room listening to the other guards talking in hushed voices. Nobody spoke openly about what was going on, but the mood was different, tense. Everyone avoided each other's eyes. I put on my vest, grabbed my baton, the pepper spray, checked my sidearm. I stared at the cold metal in my hand and wondered what good it would do if I had to use it on something that didn't bleed. I started my rounds. Long corridors lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs. The floor damp in places, like the building itself was weeping. At one point, I stopped at a junction between 2 blocks. There was a big steel door that always squeaked when the wind blew, but there was no wind in there, ever. That night, it moved. I heard the hinges creak slowly, like someone was pushing it just enough to make it whine. I lifted my flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness of the hallway. That's when I saw them on the floor. Footprints, wet, smudged, like whoever left them had come from some foul pool. I keyed my radio. Central, I've got unauthorized movement in Block C. Requesting backup. Static. Crackling. Then a voice came through. Huh? Help. It wasn't anyone on the shift. It was something else. Raspy. Wet. I released the button, tried to breathe. My heart was pounding. I advanced toward the door, pushed it hard. It swung wide, banging into the wall. Nothing. The corridor beyond was empty. The cells lined up, thick bars, heavy locks. But then I noticed something that made my blood go cold. One of the cells had bent bars, as if something massive had forced its way out. I looked inside. The bed was bolted to the floor. The toilet cracked, but no inmate was even listed in that cell number. I went to the nearby security station. The cameras were old, but they worked well enough. I toggled the control, trying to find the right view. Grainy, jumpy footage. Then something crossed the screen. A human shape, bald, wearing an orange jumpsuit. But its skin was wrong. Gray, split open, swollen, like a body left in water too long. I nearly dropped the control. I rewound the tape to check. Nothing, just an empty corridor. Live feed again. There it was, standing, facing the camera. Then it smiled. Not a friendly smile, an invitation, a promise. I fell back from the monitor, crashing into the wall. My colleagues glared at me like I was a rookie having a meltdown. Nobody wanted to look at the screen. Nobody wanted to confirm it. A week earlier, a guard had gone crazy and smashed his own teeth against the wall. I never saw him again. They said he took early retirement on disability. You're probably thinking, why didn't you quit? Ask for a transfer. I thought about it. But you don't just walk away from good pay. And if you complained too much, you got called to the office. And they only said one thing. You didn't see anything. That night, I did what any man would do. I locked the station door, shoved a chair under the handle, and sat there clutching my revolver until dawn. And even inside, behind heavy walls, I heard them, whispers, calling my name, like the dead knew exactly who I was. You want to know when I realized nothing in there followed the rules? It wasn't when I heard footsteps with no owner, or when I saw dead faces on the monitors. It was when I understood the rules existed to silence the people who saw. I remember that night perfectly. There was an unwritten code among the guards. Don't talk about what you see. You could talk about fights, shanks, inmate extortion. That was normal. But if you mentioned the whispers with no source, the shadows on the cameras, you disappeared. Officially, they said you transferred, but nobody ever heard from you again, not your family. So we obeyed. But I was getting tired of pretending. It started with a routine count. A notorious inmate sentenced for triple homicide had been found dead in his cell, hanged himself with a bedsheet. It wasn't even that rare. But the weird part, he kept answering roll call at night, I swear to God. We'd call names, count heads, and always hear his voice. Hoarse, mocking, present. The first time it happened, everyone froze. I saw another guard turn so pale I thought he'd faint. They called the supervisor. He showed up, checked the list, then tore the page out right in front of us. This count is wrong. Do it again. He made us repeat it without saying the dead man's name. Problem solved, he said. But it wasn't solved. I kept hearing that voice. Sometimes on the radio, sometimes in the corridor. I heard it once in the staff bathroom. I wasn't eating right anymore. The food in the mess hall tasted rotten, even when it was fresh. My colleagues avoided my eyes. I'd become the weird one, but I knew I wasn't alone. One night I was assigned to rounds with another guard. Big guy, tattoos all over, never scared of anything. He was white as a sheet, hands trembling so badly his keyring rattled. I asked what was wrong. He just whispered. He talked to me. The dead guy. He called me by name. I tried to tell the supervisor. He told me to shut my mouth, said to ignore it, that it wasn't our job to fix that. Instead, they transferred me to the isolation block. You think that was punishment? No, that was their way of shutting me up. Because in isolation, no one hears you scream. That block held the worst of the worst. 23 hours a day locked in. But I started to notice something wrong. The security cameras showed empty cells. But during my rounds, I'd hear voices inside. Let me out. I'm cold. Please. They were voices of inmates who had died years ago. I checked the death log. Their photos were there. The names matched the voices. The worst part was when I tried to ignore it. That's when they got angry. They'd pound on the doors, make impossible noises, metal bending, concrete cracking. I'd run there, baton ready, nothing. Silence. But the marks stayed. One night I found the head of security drinking alone in his office, cheap whiskey soaking his shaking hands. I tried to talk about what was happening. He just said, "Shut up before they come for you too." Then he laughed. A hollow, broken laugh. They don't want us to see them, but once you do, they never go away. I couldn't sleep for days. I walked the halls like a zombie. I started breaking the rules, writing everything down, describing the faces, the names, what they said. I hid my notes in a locker in the changing room. One day I went back for them. They were gone. Message received. Stop asking, stop looking, stop talking. But I couldn't stop, because once you see the dead walking in their cells, you realize the bars aren't meant to keep them in. They're meant to keep us trapped in there with them. That night, I knew something terrible was going to happen before I even stepped through the gate. The sky looked heavy, choked with black clouds that refused to move. Wind howled through the fence slats, sounding like the whole building was breathing. I stood there outside for a moment, holding my badge and thinking I could just turn around, walk away. But my body moved on its own, like it was being dragged by invisible chains. I clocked in, picked up the radio and baton, signed the logbook. My hands shook. The supervisor glared at me like he wanted to kill me. I was already a problem to him, one of the ones who saw too much. Block D, that's all he said. No explanation. Block D was the most isolated unit. They didn't want us to see them, but once you do, they never go away. I couldn't sleep for days. I started to notice something wrong. The security cameras showed empty cells. But I tried to ignore it. That's when they got angry. They'd pound on the doors, make impossible noises, metal bending, concrete cracking. I'd run there, baton ready, nothing. Silence. But the marks stayed. One night I found the head of security drinking alone in his office, cheap whiskey soaking his shaking hands. I tried to talk to him. He just said, "Shut up before they come for you too." Then he laughed. A hollow, broken laugh. They don't want us to see them, but once you do, they never go away. I couldn't sleep for days. I started to notice something wrong. The security cameras showed empty cells. But I tried to ignore it. That's when they got angry. They pound on the doors, make impossible noises, metal bending, concrete cracking. I'd run there, baton ready the worst inmates, mostly solitary, but that night it wasn't quiet. I heard screaming before I even turned the corner, not just human screaming. The air smelled like blood, that thick metallic stench that clings to your throat. When I reached the heavy steel door, I knocked first, habit so I wouldn't get jumped. Nobody answered. I pushed the door with my shoulder and froze. One of the guards was on the floor, eyes wide open, mouth torn impossibly wide and as if something had ripped his jaw off by hand. Blood pooled beneath him, thick and black in the flickering light. The walls were covered in scratch marks, not fingernails, claws. The inmates were screaming, not the usual prison shouts. This was raw panic. "They're loose," one screamed. "Shut the fucking door," another yelled. I tried to slam the door shut, but something on the other side pushed back. I didn't see it clearly, just a tall, broken silhouette that moved wrong, joints bending the wrong way. I heard the sound of chains snapping, cells opening by themselves. The lights failed. We were plunged into the red glow of the emergency lamps. I saw the inmates scattering like roaches, but they weren't running from us guards. They were running from it, that thing, that shape that jerked and twisted, its joints cracking in unnatural rhythms. It seemed to smile, but it had no lips, just wet, glistening teeth. I stood there like an idiot, clutching my baton, and then I heard that familiar voice. "Guard, run." It was him, the inmate I'd always treated decently. An old man serving life for armed robbery turned murder. I used to sneak him extra water, never beat him, never humiliated him. But he'd been dead a week, and he was standing there in his cell doorway, his orange jumpsuit rotting off his body. "Go, damn it!" he shouted again. "Get out!" He threw himself at the thing. I swear to God I saw it. Him dead, attacking that nightmare, trying to hold it back with arms that barely had flesh left. The thing screamed, a noise I'll never forget, a sound like glass shattering underwater. I ran through the corridor, slipping in blood, past inmates clawing at the bars trying to get out. Others crawled along the floor, burned, bitten, screaming in pain. The siren blared, alarms flashed. Heavy containment doors began to slide shut. The automated lockdown systems tried to work, but it was too late. I reached the security gate. The massive steel barrier was nearly closed. I dove underneath at the last second, tearing my uniform on the sharp edge. Behind me, the door slammed shut with a hollow boom. I collapsed on the floor, gasping. Everything trembled. Through the thick glass, I saw it approach. It pressed its head against the window, tapping. Behind it, I saw him, the dead inmate, my friend. He looked right at me, and even without a mouth, I heard him. "Go, tell them." I started crying right there, couldn't even stand up. After that night, I was never the same man again. They called me in for an internal interview. You might think it was some formal investigation. Police, prosecutors, news cameras. No. It was a damp basement office with stained concrete walls, smelling of mold and failure. 3 supervisors sat behind a dented metal desk. An ancient tape recorder clicked and whirred. "Tell us what happened." My voice cracked. I tried to explain. The lights failing, the doors opening by themselves. The thing with too many teeth, the dead inmate who saved me. They exchanged looks. One sighed. "This won't go in the report." I slammed my fist on the desk. "Didn't you hear me? They're alive in there. You're dismissed." I almost screamed, but my body wouldn't move. 2 massive guards escorted me out of the room. No discussion, no debate. That night I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the screaming. I smelled the burning flesh. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding like I was running for my life. I started drinking. A lot. It was the only way to make the voices shut up. Because they didn't stop, they followed me home. In the bathroom, when the faucet dripped, I heard whispers. In the dark screen of the turned-off TV, I saw shapes moving. Once I woke up and he was there, the inmate, the one who saved me, standing in the corner of my bedroom, his orange jumpsuit filthy and rotting, the skin peeling off his face. No mouth, but I heard him. "You need to tell them," I cried. Begged him to leave me alone, but he wouldn't. They put me on leave. "Emotional instability," they said. "Half pay under medical review." I went to therapy. The psychologist listened politely. "You're traumatized. PTSD." They didn't get it. It wasn't normal trauma, not just violence or death. It was knowing there's something in this world that doesn't obey any law, not life, not death. My wife left me. She said I was dangerous. I don't blame her. I used to wake up screaming in the middle of the night. One time I nearly strangled her in my sleep, thinking she was one of them. My kids don't talk to me. Moved to another city. I lost everything. My health, my sanity, my family. And even now, I can't escape them. Because every night, I hear them. The screams, the wet laughter, the whispers. Tell them. Tell the truth. They have to know. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I see them in reflections. I hear them in the walls. I know they're waiting. Waiting for me to shut up. Waiting for me to forget. But I can't. Because when I try to ignore them, I hear his voice again. That inmate who saved me during the riot, always calm, always patient. Tell them. So I'm telling you, I lost everything. And now you know. Now you know. Or at least, you know what I could actually put into words. Because there are images that come back every time I close my eyes. A long corridor, the sound of chains clinking, a shape calling to me in my dead mother's voice. A prisoner smiling with no teeth, his throat a black hole that sang like some unholy choir. They don't want to be forgotten. And I figured out the real mistake wasn't locking them up. It was building the prison there, on cursed ground. Some said it used to be an indigenous burial site. Others claimed it was an old Jesuit mission where hundreds died of fever. Some said it was just bad land soaked in bones. The contractors denied it. The government didn't care. And us guards, we didn't have a choice. We became the sentinels of hell itself. And anyone who looked too long into the abyss was dragged in. You want to know why I'm telling you this? Because I can't carry it alone anymore. Because I need to warn you, sitting there thinking this is all just a scary story, laughing, saying, "Good one for Halloween." That's right, it is meant to scare you, to make you think twice before wishing you could see the inside of a federal prison, before you romanticize it like it's some game of power between criminals and guards. Inside those walls, sides don't matter, uniforms don't matter. They see you all the same way, flesh, fear, food. So if anyone ever offers you a job in there, turn it down. Not because of the living, but because of what's waiting, or worse, what's already gotten out. Because sometimes when I walk to the corner store for bread, I see someone standing at the end of the street. A thin figure, wearing an orange jumpsuit stained with mud. No face, just watching me, waiting for me to shut up, waiting for me to forget. But I'm not going to forget. And now, neither will you. Because you heard me, and that's exactly what they want. So you'll never sleep easy again. I shouldn't even be recording this. They told me it was better to forget. That talking would only make it worse. But I know what silence does. Silence is where they grow. After I got removed from duty, I tried to live a normal life. I rented a cheap room in a crumbling building. I kept thinking, no cameras here, no bars, I'm free. But they found me. The lights still flicker every time I walk down the hallway. Neighbors complain about banging on the walls at night, about muffled screams. I tell them it's the plumbing, people fighting, kids crying. I lie to them. I lie to myself, but I know the truth. They're here. I see scratches near my bed, deep grooves clawed into the plaster. Sometimes I wake up with dirt in my mouth, like I tried to crawl away in my sleep. And in my dreams, if you can even call them dreams, I'm back there, the endless corridor, the cell doors creaking open by themselves, that thing moving in the dark in ways that make no sense, grinning with no lips, and always him, the inmate, the one who saved me. Standing at the end of the corridor, head down, no mouth, but his voice as clear as a church bell in my head. Tell them. I wake up crying. I don't have anyone left. My family won't pick up the phone. My friends changed their numbers. You're all I have left, you, listening to me now. So I'm asking you one thing: never wish to see the inside of a federal prison. Not because of the living, because of what's in there, or worse, what already got out. Because sometimes when I walk to the corner store to buy bread, I see him, standing at the far end of the street, a thin shape, wearing that filthy, mud-stained orange jumpsuit. No face, just watching me, waiting for me to shut up, waiting for me to forget, but I won't forget. And now, neither will you, because you heard me, and that's exactly what they want. They want us never to sleep peacefully again. If you like this story, click the link below and discover even deeper horrors in our exclusive ebook. Like the video, share it with someone who dares to listen to the end, and subscribe to the channel, because that might be the only thing keeping the darkness away.